everybody, Southern Maryland Beekeeper here. I have a quick slideshow for you on a swarm I caught in the spring 2013. This first picture, if you look really close here in this, some kind of a pine tree, I'm not really sure. You can see the swarm hanging there. A little closer shot. Closer still. And I'd say this swarm was probably, I don't know, maybe 3 pounds. Probably about a 3 pound to 4 pound swarm. A little bit bigger than the amount of bees that you would get in a typical package. Not huge, but, you know, definitely had a fair shot at survival if I were to get this thing in a box, without a doubt. I wasn't worried about that at all. I was worried more about how I was going to kind of get it out of this tree. This particular type of pine is not that easy to deal with, but so I figured I would cut that top branch over top of it and pull it right out of there. And this next picture here shows my setup in the way that I was going to do this. I figured I would put the table underneath of it. Got a sheet there too. And if you look up in that tree, just above it, you can see the swarm there if you look really close. So I put the table right under it. And then after I looked at it for a minute or so, I decided that I was going to have to use the ladder to get up into the tree, so that having this table sitting like that was not going to do the trick. So I put it on the ground here. And my chosen equipment are 2 medium hive bodies with a bottom board on it. And I've kind of taken a liking to using number 8 hardware cloth and cutting out a rectangular strip the width of the opening of the bottom board and bending it, an L-shaped bend to it, and just stuffing it in that entrance, and that keeps the bees in there. And that way I don't have to do anything permanently, but they can get plenty of air and they queue up for the flight, but they can't get out. And the top hive body that you see that I have sitting catty corner is really just to be used as a funnel, so I can shake the swarm inside of that, and then there'll be combs in the bottom 2 hive bodies. And then I decided to kind of spread the sheet out for the stragglers that were on the branch. I could just throw whatever didn't come off the branch, just toss that down on the sheet there, and they would find their way across and climb up into the hive. All right, and this one here, since I didn't have a cameraman or a camera woman, I had to kind of just take some snapshots here. This one is right in the middle of the action. In fact, just after I climbed up that ladder, took a pair of pruning shears, put one side of them against my hip. I snipped it out, and then I think while I was still standing on the ladder, I shook that branch down in, and the majority of the swarm went right into that top hive body that I was using as a funnel. And then I laid the branch down on that sheet there so the remainder of the bees could, file on in over time. And at this point, there's a lot of bees in the air, but the majority of them did get inside the box. All right, so this one is probably about maybe 30 minutes later. I'd come over and put the lid on, and the majority of the bees had found their way down inside of the box at this point. There were still a lot of them in that branch and a lot of them on the sheet, and still a lot of them flying in the air, and even some of them were back into the tree above. But there were enough fanners out there, so the pheromone was in the air and they were finding their way into the box, and the queen was definitely inside. I was convinced at this point that I'd gotten her, so I knew it was just a matter of time before everybody settled in, and I had it. And here's probably another additional hour after, and as you can see, even less bees on the outside. They'd really settled in at this point. And right after this is when I went ahead and pressed that number 8 hardware cloth into that entrance right there and just buttoned it up. And I used a staple gun, not to drive the staples all the way in, but just to pop some staples in and hold the hive bodies from sliding around. I stapled the bottom board to the bottom hive body and the next hive bodies to each other in transit, because I actually took this swarm to another yard and I didn't want everything sliding around in the back of my truck. But that's a nice, easy way to do it if you got one of those staple guns, because When you get there, it's really easy to take a pair of pliers and pull those, or even with your bare hand or a screwdriver or whatever to pull those staples out, and you don't do any real damage to your hiveware that way. So I found it convenient, works for me. Oh, and here I spotted a fairy princess in my yard right about the same time. She was following me around that evening as I was buttoning up the hive body to take it, and she was catching fireflies, as fairy princesses do. Here's a shot of a Warray hive, which is probably about 50 feet from where the last series of pictures were taken. It's I've got some wildflowers planted there and some mountain laurel and other things. Just a good spot. Different angle of the same Warray hive, and if you look real close, you can maybe see another Warray hive in the background. Well, I guess you can't quite see it from this angle. This one, you can see that second Warray on the far right hand side. And you can also see in this picture the real reason why I can't plant too many bee-friendly plants in my yard, because every time I plant anything, these guys and gals here just have a field day with it. I mean, they just chomp it right off. I've tried to plant fruit trees, pear trees, peach trees, apple. They just nip them right off, eat all the leaves off, or bite the entire branch off. Anything tender and young, they seem to chomp it right down. I like to watch them, but I like to garden too, so I guess it's a trade-off. Here she is checking out my Warray. Here's a picture of a different Warray a little bit farther up the driveway towards the main road. You can see all the laurel in bloom, and you can look at this picture and kind of get a feel of what the property is like here. And I think the bees have it pretty good. Here's another shot with some hives on a stand. These are my mating nukes I was using to make some splits. And this whole area used to be really densely wooded, and this was part of the last series of storms that came through. The skies really opened up there, and it's not so foresty anymore. It's starting to get a lot more light. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of big trees go down. It's good and it's bad. I have a lot more room for beehives, that's for sure, but the look and the feel of the place has been definitely forever changed. Here's another hive stand. I have a couple mating nukes in the center that I've made some splits with, and on the left-hand side, just a medium hive with 8 frames. And then on the far right, I snuck this picture in just to show you folks that I do in fact have deep hive bodies. I have a couple of those out there just so I can get some experience with that management style, because I'm a big proponent for using all medium hive bodies. I talk about that in my podcast incessantly on why it's smart to do it that way, but I can't very well bash the deep body style if I've never done it. So here's proof positive that I do in fact have deep hive bodies in my apiary. This is one of 2 that I have in service right now, and I own 3, and I may, if I get enough splits this coming spring, I may put that 3rd one into action, but that's it for now. And with that, I think I'll draw this quick slideshow video to an end. Check out my podcasts in Apple iTunes, the Organically Managed Beekeeping Podcast. Lots of great info there if you're a new beekeeper, or even if you're an old-timer or established beekeeper. There's something in those podcasts for everybody. I think you'll enjoy those. You can also check me out at SoMDBeekeeper.com. There's forums there with some great like-minded beekeepers, and the community is fantastic. Hope to see you there. Take care.